Do you want to support this podcast and earn 4.5 PDUs toward your PMI certification? If so, you can go to projectmanagementforyou.com. Again, projectmanagementforyou.com, where you can get my book, Project Management for You, How to Turn Your Ideas into Reality, Deliver on Your Promises, and Get Things Done for just $5.99. This includes the audiobook and the ebook versions of the book. So if you like podcasts, if you're listening to this right now in your car, it's a great opportunity. You can just listen to the book in audio format and earn the 4.5 PDUs. This is for less than $6, and this is Canadian dollars. So, depending on the conversion rate for you, it's even less than that. So if you are a PMP and read or listen to this book, you can also claim 4.5 PDUs towards your certification. To buy it and help support this podcast, go to projectmanagementforyou.com. Again, projectmanagementforyou.com. If you enjoyed this show, this is the best way you can support it. Thank you.
Project managers, have you ever felt like you should get that promotion or a better job? Start a business, write that book. Have you ever felt you were made for more but didn't know where to start?
Welcome to the PM for the Masses podcast with your host, Cesar Abade.
Learn from the experts, think outside the box, have a voice, network, and be extraordinary.
PM for the Masses podcast.
Well, hello everybody and welcome once again. My name is Cesar Abade, your host, and this show is your weekly reminder, or almost weekly reminder, that your career matters more than your job and that your life is a project and you are the manager. Whether you work for a company or for yourself, your job stability is really just your ability to land your next gig. So, join me in practicing intentional, planned, and value-adding relevance, starting right now. Well, today we're going to talk about project delivery, and I'm going to have here with me a former guest of the show, Mr. Colin Ellis. And he is an award-winning international speaker, best-selling author, and renowned project leadership and culture expert who works with organizations around the world to help them build teams that are fit for the future of work. Able to draw on more than 20 years of public and private sector senior management experience in the UK, New Zealand, and Australia, Colin peppers his presentations and training programs with anecdotes, statistics, practical insights, activities, and plenty of humor to ensure that people are engaged and laughing. Colin is originally from Liverpool in the UK, but he's on the line with me today from his home in Melbourne, Australia. Colin, welcome again.
Thank you, Cesar. Nice to be on the show again.
Yeah, so how long has it been since we last talked on the podcast?
It's been a full 3 years. It's been a crazy 3 years. So much has happened in that time, and yeah, I feel it feels just like it was yesterday.
I know. Time flies, but then it doesn't. So what's been what happened with you since then? You told me you're traveling a lot, so you're still doing a lot of that.
Yeah, traveling a lot, Cesar. I think when I was last on, I'd just written my first book, and that was way more popular than I thought that it would ever be. I mainly wrote it so I could tell my parents what I actually did, although they read it and they still didn't get it. I'm a project manager. What's that again? Oh, yeah, we're having this conversation. When I worked in the PMO, that was even worse. I had no idea what that was. PMO, Prime Minister's Office? Yeah, no, not that. So I did that, and I wrote another book. Yeah, I travel a lot now to keynote speak. I speak on project delivery, on organization culture. They're the things that I work on these days. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I've got a few programs that I deliver, which people seem to like, Cesar. So yeah, my work gets me about a bit. So not in Australia too often, but I'm here right now.
Cool. So for those listening, if you don't remember or if you haven't heard, I had him on episode 82. So you can go to pmforthemasses.com/82, and we talked about how to get started in project management. And today it's almost like once you get started, then what do? You deliver, right? So yeah. we'll talk about that a little bit. So you wrote a white paper that I was pretty impressed with. First of all, with the graphics of it all. It almost looks like a presentation. So well done there. And it's on project delivery. So why do you think that project delivery needs attention these days?
Oh, where to start, Cesar? I'm continually frustrated with my profession, and let's be honest, it's the greatest profession in the world because we're at the forefront of transformation, and we are, as a group of people, we are responsible for making the future happen almost. And yet, I still think, Cesar, that we've got a bit of work to do. Mm-hmm. We see this a lot around organizations at the minute. I hear a lot of it at the time. So many organizations are stating that they're going agile without really understanding what it means to go agile. It's still seen as another badge, which means that everyone goes and gets it, and they're now all certified Scrum Masters in the way that we've got. And listen, the badges are important, but I think now's the time. And I wrote the white paper really as a bit of a call to action to sort of say, listen, here's a great opportunity for us to remain relevant in the future of work, and it's an opportunity that we need to grasp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people keep asking me about PMP and about Agile and all these certifications and whether it's worth the take to get it or not. And I think I came up with a good metaphor. It's almost like bathing in a way. Like if you have it, if you have it, nobody talks about it. It's like you're known for whether or not you're good at whatever you do. But if you don't have it, then it stinks, right? Like then it's all people see. Like, oh, how come you don't have it? So my advice is always to go ahead and do it. Get your letters after your name and be done with that. And then that's not enough. You need to go and learn how to get things done and how to deliver for your client, for your users, or for whoever it is that you're working on this project. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah, I do. And like most professions, project management is a mix of IQ and EQ. Right. And I think quite often in project management, people assume the IQ element is the actual subject matter of the project, when that's wrong. Mm-hmm. Your IQ within project management is all of the tools, it's all of the methods, it's the techniques that you use. It's the technical detail of project management. And only last week I did a presentation in Sydney, in Australia, Cesar, and someone said, should I do whatever qualification it was, pick one of 10? And I said, as a project manager, you need to do them all. But the best projects are a result of the person that leads it and the environment they create for the team. So you've got to be great at EQ as well. You've got to know how to be the best version of yourself and build a team that everyone wants to join. And that means quite often being the antithesis of everybody else. And people forget that. And they're focused on the technical information. One of the things that still frustrates me, and I spoke to a firm about this today, is when I see job ads for project managers, project manager required, must have SharePoint experience. And I'm thinking, well, what do you want? Do you want a project manager or do you want a SharePoint SME? Because the two are very, very different things. Don't come moaning in a month or 2 months when they're getting stuck into the detail, because that's what you hired. So I think, yes, I totally agree. You've got to do all of the things. And if you want to throw the letters after your name, you go for it. But if you can't build relationships and communicate in different ways, forget it.
Yeah. I have a theory about this and why these certifications became so popular, and I talk about this in my book a little bit. I think project managers a vast majority of them come from a technical background, so they start out as engineers or coders or architects or some sort of technical background. And people go into technical backgrounds because they have a tendency to like code and like math and calculus, right? And then they get promoted to project managers when it's I'd say it's more than half of it is EQ, like you said, and people don't know what to do. And then because they weren't trained on how to develop a team, in school and things like that. And then somebody came along and said, let's turn the knowledge of project management into a book and into a test. And people just, all right, now I can deal with this. This is a test. I can study for this and I can pass it. And then, and I think once people caught on to that, now EQ became a technical thing according to this book, and I can just study and pass, and just exploded. It just boomed. Because, here's an opportunity to turn the soft skills into something a little more hard, But as you said, in the end, right, we're still working with folks that are humans, and you can't deliver the project on your own, and you need to inspire and folks to actually do what needs to be done, and that is not there's no formula for that.
No, that's right. And you did write that in your book. And I remember quoting from it because I fundamentally agreed with it, because project management has got its genesis in construction and latterly software development, which are high IQ jobs. Right. But I feel for people who are put into those roles. So I work with the programs that I do, Cesar, are all EQ. It's all about how do you communicate a message in 4 different ways? How do you build a vision for a team? How do you build a team? How do you manage poor performance? All these things. None of these things are really in any of the textbooks. And yet that stuff is the most important stuff. It's the most important stuff. The book stuff is generally easy, although for an extrovert like me, that's hard. I have to really work hard to learn stuff by rote. Risk management just didn't come naturally. Neither did planning and scheduling, to be honest. But I had to work really, really hard at that. But I can stand up and inspire and motivate a room full of people, no problem. No problem, because that's my personality. I can do that. But if you're a software engineer, all of a sudden being told that you're a project manager and going on a course that gives you a certificate is not the answer, because you're missing a huge swathe of the soft and team building skills that those courses just don't give you, and you just have to learn on the job, hopefully by watching someone else who can do it really, really well.
Yeah. One thing I recommend, folks, is just go ahead and take on a project, even if it's a small one. And it really helps if it's a project that doesn't have a whole lot of buy-in from your boss or your organization, and see if you can do it without a whole lot of support, and trying to work with a couple of folks that maybe they're not your best friends. And if you have, and write down what the problems were, trying to deliver that. And try to focus, how can I get around that? Because in real life, the big projects, it's going to be like that times a million. And, so, before, I forgot to mention the beginning. So the white paper, I'm going to make it available at in the show notes for today's episode. And folks can find it at pmforthemasses.com/117 for episode 117. So, Colin, so we talked about the project delivery needing attention, and so if I understand correctly, you're telling me that people are just focusing on the wrong things, and that's why a lot of projects fail. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I think so, Cesar. Certainly with the research that I did, absolutely. But then I think that people still don't really understand and or value project management because there just aren't enough good examples. I'll give you an example. Some of the research that I read from the UK last year, they interviewed project managers, and the key finding was that the project manager of the future would be valued for creativity, flexibility, agility, and emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. And I read this, and I read it over again, and I'm like, the project manager of the future will be valued of those things? That's what project managers should be doing right now, today, which gives you a kind of a sense of the chasm that we've got to fill, because the great project managers do that really, really well, Cesar. So, I think that organizations don't see enough of those, great examples to sort of say, okay, so we've seen it work really, really well with that person there. What do we need to do to replicate that? Because we can't clone that individual. How do we need to uplift that capability, or how do we need to change our focus such that we as an organization value this thing called delivery? I just think that we're still stuck in the cycle of quick fix solutions. I talk about culture a lot in the white paper, and generally, it's one of those things that organizations talk about all the time. We need to improve our culture change. We need to do that. We need to do that. And then they spend nothing on it. Spend no money. So what they do is they go open plan, which doesn't work. They send everyone on a Scrum course, which just means that they're all more high IQ than they were before. They buy a table tennis table, then they're not allowed to use it. They buy bean bags. They change the names of meeting rooms. You know what I mean? This kind of stuff, which doesn't actually fix the culture, Yeah. And I think so. The same is true of any kind of project delivery. Is what tangibly are you going to do to improve the way that you deliver? Let go of some of these quick fix things and actually take some steps to do it properly once, and then build on that.
So, all right. So let's just talk about that a little bit. How do you change then a company culture? I mean, you know, these things they don't work like you said, but what does work?
Yeah, so I think what people forget is that culture is the sum of everybody. You know, if you're an organization with 20,000 people, it's the sum of those 20,000. If it's two people, it's the sum of those two people. And what you have to do is get representatives from those people together to redefine the kind of operating culture they need to be able to deliver to their goals. By giving the staff a say in that, what they do is they create something that's theirs. They own it. The buy-in is really, really easy because members of staff have been involved in the creation of it. So, you know, I have some big year-long programs with organizations where I help them change the culture, but the emphasis is on the staff to do the work. The management are part of the staff. They're not separate. So they have to do it as well, to take action. And then every month what you do is you introduce new thinking, new learning, you provide some coaching. But it's got to be action oriented. They've got to take the action themselves. This is why when consultants are brought in to change cultures, it never ever works. And the proof is there, it never works. Because it becomes the consultants that do it on behalf of the senior managers, not the staff that do it on behalf of themselves. And you know, cultures take between 6 to 9 months. You start to see the kind of shoots of change, and then at 12 months, you've really got something that you can evolve from. Cesar. So I think that, you know, organizations need to almost draw a line in the sand and say, okay, you know, yes, culture change is hard, but no one ever said it wasn't worth it. We've got some tough decisions to make. And actually, as a senior management team, we've got to take a back seat here and elevate and kind of, you know, encourage other people to take the lead and do this on our behalf. And we'll make sure that we do everything that the staff think that we need to do in order to become this new culture.
I agree. Yeah, it's and the larger the organization, the harder it is to do, because it becomes, as you know, communication channels, they grow exponentially the more people you have, and it's difficult sometimes. You know, it's I think the first step is to get middle management, you know, buy in, and then that's a big task, and then downstream from there. And still, it's tricky.
Yeah, but I mean, it is tricky, Cesar. Sorry to jump in, but you know, one of the things that I do, so when you bring a group of people together, and I did one recently for an organization, I just started working with an organization, and so we brought 100 people from across the business, and they were a mix of middle managers, people who've been there a week, people who've been there 30 years. And as part of the initial kind of 2-day culture definition piece, what I do is I teach everybody how to do it in their own area. Because what people forget is the strength of an organization's culture is built on the strength of its subcultures. So if everyone gets their team really humming and they know how to communicate really, really well with other teams, then what you get is this real sense of we know how to do culture really, really well. And we use the word silo as a really bad thing to indicate that bit of the business is broken. And yet we don't talk about the opposite, because there are some silos that work really, really well. And people are like, how do I join that team? How do I get there? So I think, you know, we have to, the art of team and culture building is not something that we've ever put any time and effort in. Listen, we love sending people on leadership development courses. You know, McKinsey's found a couple of years ago that they spent $14 billion a year in the US alone on leadership development, of which only 7% was considered effective. We don't do anything like that in the culture space. And yet culture is the most important thing. It's the way that we do things. It's the way that we deliver everything. And yet every time I meet people and I talk about my program, they just don't want to spend the money all the time. And instead they, you know, redesign the office furniture layout and get some furniture and all the superficial things that don't really make a difference.
That is a challenge, but I agree with you. It's where it's at. In the end, it doesn't even, you know, project management is just a word. In the end, it's about, okay, we have to deliver this thing, right? Somebody's paying us to do it, or there's a demand in the market, and our organization depends on this change we need to implement, and we just need to make this happen. And once you talk about things that way, instead of just, you know, the jargon of, you know, schedules and budgets and things like that, then it becomes more clear. So, wow, actually, we need a group of people who want to do this and have the capability to do it. And that is not about, a lot of times it's not about, your certifications or anything like that. It's just about, okay, can we as a group of people get this done and be happy at the end, and not kill ourselves at the end, just still be happy and be together and move on to the next one.
Yeah, what have we done as a group of people to agree how we'll work together to get this thing done? And organizations talk a lot about agility at the minute, Cesar, and I talk about this in the white paper, this concept of organizational agility. It's not using agile methods. That's just one part of it. Organizational agility requires a different kind of mindset, a set of principles that we all hold to be true, and people who understand how to be the best version of themselves. Now, that doesn't mean that you're soft on poor performance. That means you drive each other to succeed. We do our best work on the edge of uncomfortable, and we want our teammates to hold us accountable for stuff. And so whilst the technical knowledge is important to help us gather the information, to analyze information, to assess where we are, it's still the relationships that we have and the way that we talk to each other that's the glue that holds us together. That's the thing that will get us over the line. That's the thing that will make us laugh at 2 a.m. in the morning when we're trying to fix a bit of code for something that's going live at 9 a.m. It's that sense of camaraderie, that little bit of banter, but that real togetherness that lives with us forever. We talk about it forever, and we say that was a great project. And we never say that was a great project, it was because of Scrum. We say that was a great project because as a team, we really pulled together. We did it in the right way. The customer was engaged and we got it done. And, in the project world, it's all about getting it done, but it'd be nice if it was a great experience.
Right. So what is the first step towards being more agile as an organization?
Self-awareness, Cesar. First and foremost, I talk about this all of the time, is if you want to be an agile organization, your people need to be self-aware, and then they need to challenge themselves to improve. An ING, Dutch Bank ING, I hold those up as an example because they decided they were going to do this agile journey, and they spent 9 months making sure that people had the insights in what it meant to be self-aware and highly emotionally intelligent. And at the end of that 9 months, they only kept the people who were good people. Right. So they said that, they said at the time that they lost a lot of people who had the right skills, but the wrong attitude and behavior. So in order to achieve this organizational agility, well, you need to do some work with the staff to make sure they understand what it means to be the best version of themselves. And I do this work, and partly it's a personality profile, but partly it's deciding what action you need to take as an individual to grow and stay relevant. We've got too many people in our businesses who are holding us back because they don't want to change. They haven't recognized the fact that the world has changed, therefore they have to communicate differently. Or we've got some new skills and we've got some new technical skills that we need to learn, and we have to apply them in different ways. Or that there's a different generation coming into the workforce who want things to be done in a different way, and they resist it. And I'm like, well, tough. I love that. It's like, we've got a new generation coming into the workforce. What did you expect? The baby boomers and Gen Xers would just rule forever, It's not the case. And so it starts with you understanding yourself and deciding what personal change you need to make in order to become more flexible in your thinking and less rigid in your approach.
Right. And if it's any consolation, I think the new generation, their EQ is way higher than ours, and baby boomers, to be honest with you. And I think that's why we complain so much about the millennials. They're more heart than brain, and that's a good thing. I think that's what we need. Do you agree with me?
It's a great thing.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. When I remember watching Mad Men, and I've only recently got into Mad Men. People are like, you should watch Mad Men. I'm like, I can't. If I get into Mad Men, that will be my life over. And, one of the characters in there is a guy called Roger Sterling, and he said, there was a great line in there. He said, every generation thinks the next one is the end of it all.
Right.
And it's true. But, this generation they were encouraged to talk about their feelings. My dad never encouraged me to talk about my feelings, Cesar. I remember once, actually, he told me my emotions would get me in trouble. Whereas we encourage, I've got a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old. I tell them I love them every day, that I'm here, and when I'm on the phone with them. That's what we do now when we talk to them about the feelings. And that's a great thing. But that's the evolution of our world. And that's then going to influence the evolution of our business. And there are some people who are still resisting it. And it's kind of like, well, you got to get with the program or you'll be irrelevant very, very quickly. But that's not to say that you still don't have the technical knowledge and the skills to get it done, right?
Right. Yeah, you need both. You can't just be pie in the sky. And I think those are the individuals that are set to success in the next decade, is folks who have a strong foundation in the technical sides and data and the engineering and all that the hard skills, but also can relate to folks on an emotional level. If you have that combination, that's great. If you don't, you should start working on to get there. That's what I think.
Yeah, I worked with an engineering company in Canada not so long ago, Cesar, and somebody came up to me after the session that I ran, and they said, okay, one thing, and they worked very much in engineering. It was in kind of railway track laying. And they said, what's the one thing I should concentrate on? If I said to you, where should I put all my time? What should it be on? And I said, learning how to be empathetic. I was like, because when you can see the world from somebody else's point of view, you can change the way that you communicate such that you can motivate them to do absolutely anything. I said, but not only that, you get this crucial insight into yourself too. So humility goes up, vulnerability goes up, that creates connection. Connection creates trust creates motivation, and we get the job done. Because, empathy is the root of everything, but it starts with you knowing yourself first.
Right, I agree with you. And project managers are so well positioned to actually make use of this, because they're caught in between their sponsors and the client sometimes and the team. And all these three groups, they have different emotional investment into whatever they're doing here. And sometimes they have competing interests.
That's right.
And you as a project manager, if you can translate the emotional state of the sponsor to your team, for example, and vice versa, you're in a very privileged position here to actually make a difference, because everybody has good intentions in all stakeholders, but people don't communicate because they don't see eye to eye. So you are in the position that you can actually make that communication work, but you need to be in tune with everyone's emotional state when it comes to the project, right? So I agree with you. It's a great. It is the most important thing for folks in this position.
Yeah, that's so true, Cesar. That's such a true statement. That's really well put as well. And, I want to see project managers become the future leaders of organizations, because as we said at the start, we're in the communication and relationship business. Make no mistake about that. So we should be role models for other people to sort of say, okay, that's how you do it really, really well. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what sets a whole lot of people into a bit of a panic, because it's the reason why maybe you were not popular in high school, and it's maybe the reason why you didn't get that one job but that other dude got, because he was more well spoken than you, and for a lot of people it's what it haunts them, the fact that they don't have this the emotional maturity that we talk about here, and they made it this far, right, in a technical role, and they're paying their bills and they have a social life, and now they get promoted, and now they have to this comes back to them, right? Mm-hmm. What for folks listening right now, and they who would like to be better at this heart emotional stuff, what is like a one tangible thing they can do, like something that a technical person could understand?
Well, it demands courage, and the great thing about emotional intelligence is that it can be learned. Cesar, that's the great thing, and anyone can do it, but it needs a bit of courage. So you have to kind of suck that up a little bit and go, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to need to show a little bit of courage. And I'd find one person that you work with. I'll offer to shout them a coffee or lunch or a beer, or if they don't want to do that, just find 20 minutes with them and ask them for one piece of feedback on their style. Just say, what's one thing I could do differently? Just one thing. And I think once you get that insight into that, you need to then act on it. And then you ask somebody different the next week and somebody different the next week. And then all of a sudden you're in a cycle of continual improvement. And you're not only interested in the opinions of others in terms of kind of progress and what we need to do, but also in your own personal performance. And this whole concept of being the best version of yourself is being emotionally very good. Quite often we can't see that. And sure, you can do a personality profile, which will tell you some of those things, but it's only in the feedback from others that you really get a sense of some of the opportunities you have for development. And I always say opportunities for development rather than issues or problems, because it's really, really important that people understand that we can change all of these things. It only becomes a weakness if it's a mistake you make over and over and over and over again. So if you're consistently getting angry in the office, that's not cool. It's so not cool. And I'd like to think you've had some feedback on that to do something about it. But it's courage to ask the question and then courage to take the action as well, Cesar. But once you start asking questions, firstly, you become more human, and secondly, people are more open to tell you when you perhaps don't get things right.
Perfect. That's great. So, all right. So we talked about organizational agility. We talked about emotional maturity. And the third part of the model here is the continual improvement. And you already kind of hinted at that. So what's that all about?
Yeah, so I hinted at that. So it's about personal improvement. Not only that, it's about organizational continual improvement, because people are moving into this new agile world, Cesar, and they're still making all of the mistakes they ever made in the past. There was a project that failed here in Australia last week, over $100 million. 3 years, software project. The reasons that it failed were all reasons that projects have been failing for years. And Enough with this. Enough with the no planning. Enough with the just do it anyway. Enough with the not making the decision to stop it when it doesn't become financially viable or there's no return on investment. Enough with tolerating poor performance. Enough with project sponsors not being engaged. It's time to stop all these pathetic, stupid mistakes and actually learn from the mistakes of the past and say, right, enough, let's draw a line. What are some reasons projects have failed, and let's resolve never to do these. Now, of course, we're all human beings, so we make the odd mistake every now and again. And failure is an opportunity to learn. But when you continually fail for the same reasons over and over again, you've really got to start looking at the competency of the people and saying, have they got what it takes to be able to deliver? I'll give you a great example. Almost every year, most organizations in the public service overpromise and underdeliver. You think the message would have got through that maybe one year we should just promise what we can actually resource, and then just do that really, really well. You look at someone like Spotify, right? They only do 10 projects at once. They call them bets. 10 projects at once. They have to finish one before they take on another. Great. They're just learning from the mistakes of others in the past, including themselves. Daniel Ek said this, the CEO, in an interview. He's like, we were taking on too much and never get to the end of anything. So I think this concept of continual improvement, again, like culture, people talk about it, but they don't do it. They either strive for perfection or they put their blinkers on and pretend stuff's not happening, Cesar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And the whole thing about taking one project at a time, I think there's I think the thing is that the fear of missing out, right? The FOMO, and this is usually like a human trait, but I think it translates to the organization as well, that we can't leave stuff on the table. We just have to take every single opportunity and turn that into some sort of deliverable. But the truth is, I think sometimes it's, there's enough of the pie for everyone, and it's okay to take one thing at a time and learn and then move on to the next. Take, if you will, like a waterfall approach to what you do, not necessarily how you do it, but what you do. You do one thing at a time, you learn, move on to the next. What do you think about that?
Well, what I love about Agile is this concept of minimum viable product. Back in the kind of mid-2000s, one of the organizations where I was head of projects, we introduced this thing called minimum viable documentation. We very much grabbed the early Agile stuff from 2001, and we let's try and do this with as little documentation as possible. And that was in government, where people told me it couldn't be done. And so I think that, some of the best projects I've ever been involved in, Cesar, were waterfall projects. Mm-hmm. There's this kind of misguided view that waterfall, bad, agile, good. You can still deliver value quickly through waterfall, but not in the same way as you can through agile, where you prototype, showcase, there we go, move on. So I love that approach. I really love that approach, because I think for too many projects, we try and create the absolute perfect solution. And I swear to God, I think that some people make a living out of making things hard and complex for the rest of the organization. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, dude, just get out the way, mate. Just get out the way. We're done with that,
Yeah.
So I love the idea of minimum viable product, but I also love the idea of phasing. In a waterfall environment, do phase 1, assess, phase 2, assess, phase 3. Don't try and get it perfect. Concentrate on getting what you need in order to get the result that you want, and then move on to the next thing really, really quickly. But that really needs that execution mindset, just to whip through stuff and get it done.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
And you have 5 recommendations in the white paper as well to get to delivering better. Maybe we can run through them real quick.
Yeah, sure. So firstly, I think that organizations should make emotional intelligence programs a priority. I think it's important that they give staff the skills and the insights and the knowledge of what it means to be the best version of themselves. The second thing is to really empower everybody in the team. And that's from a cultural perspective, is everyone should know how to create a great team and how to be part of a great team as well. The third recommendation really is about the PMO. There are too many PMOs out there who are holding businesses back, and it's not really the PMO. Usually it's the PMO manager that's holding them back, and I think those guys have got to come to the party and start to add more value and reduce the bureaucracy and shift obstacles out of people's way. And number 4 is to really get small with tools. I think the days of huge project management information systems are gone. I think what you want to do is, when you set up the culture for your team, you want to agree on the right tools to use, and then everyone commit to them, and that way you enhance communication, collaboration, and you create a great foundation from which to evolve and grow the project. And then the last one, which I mentioned earlier, is I think that teams should get together regularly and give each other feedback to really encourage that trust and openness and accountability, and also to force a little bit of self-awareness, because there are some people who think they're the perfect employees, and that just doesn't exist, I'm afraid.
Right. Yeah. Giving each other feedback is it's actually a big topic right now. There's a bunch of new applications to help you do that, and which to me it's a signal that it's a sign that there's a demand for that kind of stuff, and I think it really foster a culture of self-analysis and freedom of communication. Like, because if you feel free to tell a colleague that, hey, you could have done better here, that says a lot about the company, the organizational culture. If you can do
that's
that,
right.
Yeah, if you can
Peter Bregman, in his book 4 Seconds, he said the way to create a culture in which people are honest for each other's benefit is to share feedback often, and I couldn't agree more. I think the more comfortable you get with sharing feedback honestly, the greater the improvement you'll see in your culture in a really short space of time. Definitely.
So I'm going to give you some feedback right now.
Great.
You're a pretty awesome guy. So
thank you, Cesar.
Yeah. So thank you for making the time. And I'm going to add a link to the white paper on the show notes, and you can find it again at pmforthemasses.com/117 for episode 117. I'll also have a link there to Colin's books, and also a place where you can find him. So what is the best place if people want to learn more about you and what you do? Where should they go?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Cesar. Somebody accused me of owning LinkedIn. I don't yet. And that's Colin D for David, if anyone's wondering what that was, Colin D Ellis. Or they can go to my website, which is cde.xyz.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I'll have all these links in today's show notes, and please visit and consider bringing Colin to speak to your folks. I think from what I've seen, we never met in person, but I've seen your videos. I follow what you do. I think you are the person to bring if you want to start delivering better and start changing the culture organization, the organizational culture the right way. I like ping pong too, but that doesn't cut it. You need to bring Colin to talk about it and start from the bottom up, not top down. Colin, thank you so much for your time once again, and hope to have you again soon. Keep writing, and I'll keep calling you.
Thanks so much, Cesar. Thank you, mate.
All right, have a good day.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the PM for the Masses podcast.
Tune in next week for more great ideas on how to manage your projects better and truly stand out in your industry.
PMforthemasses.com